My fiancée spent our wedding fund on her ex. I froze the account, said nothing, just pressed charges. 2 days later, she showed up screaming at my office with her parents behind her. I, 29 male, am, or I guess was, a pretty simple guy. I have a decent job in data analysis, a small apartment I'm proud of, and a 5-year plan that until last week was perfectly on track. The centerpiece of that plan was Sophia, 28, my fiancée of 1 year, together for 4. We were saving up for our wedding next spring. We agreed to open a separate, high-yield savings account for it. Since I handle our finances, I'm better with spreadsheets. She hates them. The account was opened in my name only, a fact we both explicitly agreed upon for simplicity. She would transfer her portion of the savings to my main checking account, and I would move the combined total into the wedding fund. Over the last 10 months, we'd amassed a respectable $22,000. The venue deposit was due in 3 weeks. Last Tuesday, I logged into the account to check the interest statement. My heart didn't just drop, it felt like it went into cryogenic stasis. The balance was $3,500. There wasn't a single transaction. There were 3, all made on the same day. 3 separate ACH transfers, each for a different amount, totaling $18,500. They were spaced about an hour apart, likely to avoid an automatic flag for a single large withdrawal. The recipient was listed as Dylan V. Dylan, her ex, the one she always described as a tortured artist who just never caught a break. I saw him as a manipulative leech, which was a significant point of contention early in our relationship. She swore he was out of her life for good. To make these transfers, she would have needed my login and password. I realized with a sickening lurch that she must have seen me type it on our home computer 100 times. She knew my patterns. She knew the account. And she chose to exploit that trust. My first emotion wasn't anger. It was silence. A profound, hollow silence in my head. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I methodically took screenshots of the transfers. I downloaded the full bank statement. Then I made 2 phone calls. The first was to my bank. I explained that 3 large, unauthorized transfers had been made from my savings account. They asked a series of security questions, which I answered. I confirmed the security on my account hadn't been breached by an outside party, which led to the inevitable conclusion that it was done by someone with direct access to my credentials. They immediately placed a temporary hold on the account and opened a formal fraud investigation. The second call was to the non-emergency line of the local police department. I calmly explained that I needed to file a report for theft. An officer told me to come down to the station with my documentation. I sat in that sterile police station for 2 hours. I showed the officer the bank statements, our written wedding budget we'd mapped out together in a shared note, and a few text messages where Sophia and I explicitly discussed the sole purpose of that account. He was surprisingly empathetic. He took my statement, gave me a case number, and said a detective would be in touch. Then I went home. Sophia was there, humming in the kitchen, making pasta. She kissed me as I walked in. "Hey babe, how was your day?" "Just another day," I said, my voice even. For 2 days, I said nothing. I watched her. I responded to her texts. I let her talk about flower arrangements and bridesmaid dresses. Every word was like a small grain of sand grinding in my gut. I wasn't playing a game. I was simply waiting. I had set the pieces in motion, and I refused to give her the satisfaction of a screaming match where she could twist my anger into an excuse for her actions. The consequence needed to be clinical, official, undeniable. The explosion came sooner than I expected, and at the worst possible place. This morning, I was in the middle of a quarterly presentation with my department head Alan and 2 senior VPs. My phone was buzzing on silent in my pocket, but I ignored it. Then my receptionist's voice came over my desk's speaker, sounding flustered. "Jordan, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but your fiancée is here, and her parents. She's very insistent. She said it was a dire family medical emergency." Before I could even respond, the conference room door burst open. The lie about a medical emergency had gotten her past the front desk, and there she was. Sophia, her face blotchy and red. Behind her stood her mother, Diana, looking like a thundercloud, and her father, Ralph, wringing his hands. "Jordan." Sophia's voice was a shriek. "What did you do? The account is frozen. I tried to send Dylan the rest of the money for his studio lease, and it was declined." Silence in the conference room. My VPs stared. Alan looked at me, then at Sophia, his expression hardening. I stood up slowly, my own voice dangerously quiet. "We can discuss this later, Sophia. I'm in a meeting." "No," she screamed. "You did this. You froze our wedding money. How could you be so controlling?" Diana, her mother, pointed a finger at me. "I always knew you were a cold one. She was helping a friend in need. It's what good people do. You would ruin your own wedding over a little bit of money?" A little bit of money. $18,500. I looked past them, directly at my boss. "Alan, I apologize for this. It seems my ex-fiancée has mistaken my workplace for her personal stage." The word ex-fiancée hung in the air. Sophia's face went from furious to horrified. What did you just say?" I finally turned my full attention to her. The manufactured calm I had worn for days was still there, like a suit of armor. I said, "Ex-fiancé, you stole $18,500 of my money and sent it to your ex-boyfriend. That isn't helping a friend. That's grand theft. And for the record, I didn't freeze the account. I reported the theft, and the bank froze it as part of their investigation. An investigation that started right after I filed a police report against you and Dylan 2 days ago." Ralph, the father, finally spoke, his voice weak. "A police report? Son, isn't that a bit much? It's a family matter. When it involves my life savings and a felony, it stops being a family matter and becomes a legal one," I said, my tone flat. "Now all 3 of you need to leave before I have security escort you out." As they were herded out by building security, who Alan had quietly called, Sophia had one last thing to scream down the hallway. "You'll regret this, Jordan. You can't just press charges on your fiancé. You're the thief. You stole our future." I just stood there. I took a deep breath, looked at Alan, and said, "I am so sorry. I promise this will be handled." He just nodded, a strange look of respect in his eyes. "Take the rest of the day, Jordan. Go get your head straight." So here I am, sitting in my silent apartment, which now feels tainted. Is it wrong that their meltdown didn't make me feel guilty, but just vindicated? Update 1. The last few weeks have been a masterclass in manipulation and fallout. Thanks for the comments on my original post. They helped me keep my spine straight. I hired a lawyer the day after the office incident, a sharp, no-nonsense woman who has been worth every penny. Work has been fine. Alan has been surprisingly supportive, and the incident has been quietly forgotten, treated as the unfortunate private matter it is. My job is safe. The Sophia & Co. circus, however, has been in full swing. The detective assigned to my case formally questioned Sophia and Dylan. This is when the reality started to sink in for them, and their tactics shifted. First came the smear campaign. Diana and Sophia told our mutual friends and distant family a wild story about how I was financially abusive, that the money was jointly owned, and that I was holding it over her head. They painted Sophia's theft as an act of desperation to escape my control. It didn't stick. Most people who know me saw through it immediately. When that failed, Sophia tried a more direct approach. A late-night text. "Sophia, Jordan, we need to talk. I haven't been feeling well. I missed my period. I think I might be pregnant." My blood ran cold for about 5 seconds. Then my lawyer's advice kicked in. This was a classic, desperate ploy. If that turns out to be true, a court-ordered paternity test will be required after the child is born. This does not change the criminal proceedings for theft. Radio silence for 24 hours. The pregnancy has, miraculously, not been mentioned since. The grand finale of this phase was a certified letter from a lawyer they hired. It was a formal offer to make this all go away. The offer: I would immediately contact the DA's office and withdraw my complaint. In return, Sophia would graciously agree to a payment plan to return the money. The plan? $100 a month. At that rate, it would take over 15 years to pay back the principal, interest-free. The letter called it a good faith gesture to resolve this unfortunate family dispute. They were delusional. They genuinely believed they held the cards. My lawyer and I drafted a very short response. It stated that we rejected their offer and intended to cooperate fully with the district attorney's prosecution. Furthermore, we put them on notice that we would be filing a civil suit to recoup all stolen funds and associated legal fees after the conclusion of the criminal case. Last weekend, I found the wedding gift I'd bought for her. A beautiful, minimalist watch, engraved on the back, Our Forever. 05/18/25. It was a relic from a life that was now an illusion. I sold it at a pawn shop. It wasn't about the money. It was about severing the last physical tie. The weight of it leaving my possession was a relief I can't fully describe. Update 2. The wheels of justice grind slowly, but they do grind. The criminal case is now closed. The last few months were a slow burn of legal maneuvering. Sophia and Dylan were formally charged. Their lawyer tried to get the case dismissed, but the evidence was overwhelming. The bank records, my testimony, Sophia's confession at my office, and the pièce de résistance, Dylan's public Instagram account. He had used our wedding money to launch a bespoke denim jacket company, flaunting pictures of expensive equipment and materials. My detective loved that part. Faced with an ironclad case, their lawyer advised them to take a plea deal. The criminal consequences. Sophia, she pleaded guilty to a felony charge of theft. She avoided jail, but that's where her luck ended. She received 5 years of probation and was ordered to pay restitution for the full $18,500, for which she is jointly liable with Dylan. A felony conviction has made her functionally unemployable in her future. Dylan, the artist, got hit harder. The investigation uncovered a prior conviction for fraud. He was sentenced to 6 months in county jail for receiving stolen property and is also on the hook for the restitution. His denim company vanished before it began. The day the plea was entered, I felt nothing. No joy, no triumph. Just the quiet finality of a chapter closing. My lawyer filed our civil suit the next day. The criminal conviction makes it a straightforward case. Now, another waiting game begins. Final update. It's been a year and a half since I discovered my life was a lie. I wasn't going to post again, but a few things happened that feel like a true conclusion. The civil suit was, as my lawyer predicted, a slam dunk. The criminal conviction sealed it. The judge awarded me a judgment for the full $18,500 plus my attorney's fees against both Sophia and Dylan. But as anyone who's been through this knows, winning a judgment and collecting the money are two entirely different universes. Dylan got out of jail and disappeared, likely to another state. We'll probably never see a dime from him. Sophia, with a felony record, was working as a waitress. Her wages were garnished, but after taxes and her own living expenses, I was receiving about $70 a month. A grim, pathetic reminder of the whole affair. This is where the real consequences, the ones born from character, not a gavel, kicked in for her family. Sophia's probation terms were strict. She had to maintain employment, and most importantly, she could not miss a single restitution payment. A few months in, she lost her waitressing job. Unemployed and with a payment due, she was facing a probation violation, which could mean jail time. And this is when her parents, Diana and Ralph, made their final ruinous choice. Instead of letting their daughter face the consequences of her actions, they stepped in. They started paying her court-ordered restitution to keep her out of jail. They paid her rent, they paid for her car, they paid her legal fees from the civil suit. I learned from a mutual acquaintance that they drained their retirement savings first. When that was gone, they took out a second mortgage on their proud suburban home. They weren't legally obligated to pay me a cent, but their pathological need to protect their daughter from the world they'd raised her to feel entitled to forced them to set their own lives on fire to keep her warm. The final interaction happened about a month ago. An unknown number. I almost didn't answer. It was Ralph, Sophia's father. He sounded exhausted. "I hope you're happy, Jordan," he said, his voice raspy. "We had to sell the house. We're moving into a small rental. You've ruined us." The old me, the man who existed 18 months ago, would have felt a stab of guilt. But that man was gone. "I didn't do anything, Ralph," I said, my voice calm and clear. "I saved for a wedding. Sophia stole that money. When she was caught, you and Diana helped her make excuses instead of helping her take responsibility. Every single bill you've paid and every asset you've sold is the direct result of your own choices. You weren't ruined by me. You were ruined by your refusal to let your daughter face the consequences of her own crime." He was silent for a long time. Then a quiet click. He hung up. The monthly restitution payments now arrive on time for a slightly larger amount. They come from her parents' new, much less impressive address. I don't need the money anymore. I've rebuilt my savings. I moved to a new apartment in a different part of town. The money goes into a separate account. Maybe one day I'll donate it to a victims relief fund. Life is quiet now. I'm not dating. I'm not sure when I'll be ready to trust someone that way again. But I'm not miserable. I've reconnected with old friends. I'm traveling more. The scar is there, but it no longer hurts to the touch. I learned that my methodical nature isn't coldness, it's clarity. And I face the ugliest betrayal imaginable, not with screams, but with silence and paperwork. I walked away from the wreckage with my integrity and my future intact. They are trapped in a prison of their own making, bound by a toxic sense of entitlement that has cost them everything. And in the end, that is a form of justice more profound than any court could ever deliver.